I want to thank people for coming out on a lovely Friday afternoon when most of Christina's already disappearing for a long weekend. Balazs, Horvath, I hope I got that approximately right. I'm genuinely very pleased that you're here visiting with us. Balazs has, I think some of you have done your homework. Those of you who work for A.U.K, I'm sure. But for the people from A.U.K, Balazs earned his PhD in econometrics at Cambridge. He worked for nearly 20 years in the IMF, ending up as the investment representative in Kiev, which in 2008-2009 was a very interesting time in terms of the Ukrainian economy. You joined the UNDP in Bratislava in 2009 and are running poverty reduction programs, which is, let's face it, the single biggest core mission of the UNDP and embraces all the other things. Your talk today is on the economic crisis and its impact on the region and on strategies for addressing the economic. And obviously, this is a really important topic for all of us. We in the UK struggle with the ways in which we can make our own soil contributions. I'm really looking forward to this. Over to you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much. I would also like to begin by thanking everyone for coming. Let me just give you first very quick context. First, I would like to give you a big picture in terms of, from first principles, what exactly is this crisis about? And I'm at that stage, and throughout actually most of the presentation, I will not be talking specifically about, for example, on the region, and by the region, I mean southeastern Europe, all the way to Turkey, new member states of the European Union, and all of the others. That's the region. I will make the point to you, I will actually try to convince you that this is not just a crisis. It's a crisis with very different layers. And the uniqueness of what we are facing, or what we have been facing in 2008, is that it's a coincidence of very many different factors. And once you realize that, you begin to understand why it's so extraordinarily complex to solve the crisis, or to come out of the crisis. And a little bit more on that later. Then I will be talking about empirical work that we have done, three of us in the Bratislava Center, looking at the impact of the crisis. And the way that we did that was, of course, we don't know the future. But we do know that this region has gone through previous crises. So the question that we have asked, suppose that this crisis is actually the same as all the previous crises. The transition crisis in the early 1990s, the Russia-related crisis in 1998, and so on. And what if we assume that this crisis is just exactly the same? And we can actually extract elasticities, past elasticities, of human development indicators like poverty, incidence of diseases, crime rate, unemployment rate, and various things that characterize our standard of living and the life that we live. We can derive elasticities of these with respect to changes. Thank you very much. I can. Perfect. Thank you. And so suppose the future is like the past. We have derived actual elasticities based on a big panel of data for the region. And then we have applied the IMF's projections for the coming years. And using those projections and the change in per capita GDP, we apply the elasticities, and then we've got future paths of human development variables. And I'll show you some of the charts. And hope to convince you that there is a whole lot to think about, and the crisis is not over at the moment. Per capita incomes begin to rise again. Actually, there are very big lags involved, which we derive from the actual data in the past. And because of these lags, even if incomes begin to grow, you will see that and we look at one specific angle in which it is not, and that is the actual behavior of fiscal policy during this crisis. And what we find, and that's the role of fiscal policy part, what we find, and this is on a different sample, it's on a sample of actually only former Soviet republics, but we are extending it to other countries as well in the region. What we find is that Keynes will be proud of Putin, of Nazarbayev, and all the others. In 2009, at the depth of the crisis, when output fell most levels from the lowest level around this crisis, fiscal policy was expansionary. Not only was it expansionary, even its composition was the kind of composition that you would want if you are someone who has social conscience. And that means that social protection payments, payments for labor market, employment continuity, all these payments actually rose as a percent of GDP. And I'll show you again some charts. The spectacular coal movement in 7 or Soviet republics along these lines. So that was a major surprise. What I expected when this research started was trouble. You know, the first moment output declines, revenues decline, so there's no money and people stop spending, which is exactly how we had in 1998 and then in the transition recession period. And actually, it wasn't. So I thought that was an interesting thing, worth sharing. And then I'll finish by some thoughts on the election. Here we go. So why is this crisis complex? It is complex because I believe it can be fairly characterized as a confluence of very many different kinds of shocks. And I have grouped those shocks into short-term and long-term in the sense of the frequency, how frequently these shocks come around, or how long-term they are. Among the short-term shocks that we are facing now is a standard cyclical downturn, right? We have, in any market economy, and in all market economies, we have a cycle. So we had the downturn phase of the cycle, starting in mid-2008 and getting really bad in 2000. At the same time as we had this, we had a financial crisis. It's not necessarily true that every cyclical downturn comes with a banking crisis or a financial sector crisis. This one did. It has happened in the past. There is actually a very nice IMF paper that concludes that among cyclical downturns, the worst ones in terms of getting out of it are the ones when it coincides with the financial sector crisis. Then it takes much longer to get out of the cyclical downturn. But that's not the end of the story. We also have an incredible roller coaster of commodity prices. You all recall that the price of oil used to be $20. Actually, there was a time when it was $18 a barrel. Then it went all the way up to $137. That was around April 2008. Then crashed back to around 50, and now it's standing